Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. It's the international break, isn't it? So it may seem quiet for many, but there's plenty of rumours and plenty of noise around things like contracts, transfers, and other things at Liverpool. And there's just a small matter of a charge towards the title set to begin. And a welcome as ever, the renowned and the respected David Lynch. I mean, David, nice just having this little bit of international break before the madness starts, I guess.
Yeah, but particularly, I guess, because it has been pretty relentless recently as well. And I mean, we've seen a little bit of tiredness in the legs maybe in some recent games. And, it's understandable, really. I mean, the amount of it's just been weekend midweek for feels like months now, doesn't it? So I guess a bit of rest for, well, not necessarily for all the players because a lot of them have headed out on international duty, but for us it's a nice change at least. And I suppose there's a little bit of a gap as well, isn't there, to the game for when they do come back from international duty. So that should be helpful, and hopefully we see a really good version of Liverpool, the best version, over the remaining 9 games of the season, and they can kind of romp home to the title.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That will be the nice outcome that everyone's looking for. And we'll start, people, where we usually do with international breaks and the off the field news. Now, this one actually came late last night, David, to be honest. It was in one that I don't think caught everyone by surprise is the right word, but Liverpool and Everton fail in a cheeky bid to bring the Merseyside derby forward 24 hours. That just kind of came from nowhere a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, and I haven't stood it up myself, so I haven't really heard anything about this. But it's an interesting one. I guess it would have made sense for, as you said in the piece, I guess it made sense for both teams in terms of making that one worthwhile for them. And obviously it would have been helpful for Liverpool in the title race as well to give Everton that little bit of extra rest. But obviously they've failed in that, so it's not going to be the case. And Everton, you hope, have got enough left in the tank for that Saturday 12:30 kickoff against Arsenal that follows it. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's interesting one that both clubs were happy with it, but maybe say with the extended break and the little bit of the gap and no games on the FA Cup weekend, maybe the Reds and the bodies there were happy with it. So Wednesday it is, people. And I know everyone like you is going to be focused on international football and thinking, please, no one get injured. I mean, it didn't start, it seemed, with the best news because Alisson got his concussion and he was back from Brazil duty. We saw the Ryan Gravenberch news that he'd left the camp due to an injury that's linked to the Carabao final, it seems. And then there was a bit of a worry when Konate was taken off at half-time. It looks like that one, though, was just a tactical decision by Didier Deschamps for France. Is there any update around Gravenberch? Because that's the one that everyone's wanting to know. Is this more precautionary or is there something to be concerned about here?
Yeah, so I could say that the kind of sources close to the player are playing it down and making out that it's not too serious. So in theory, the talk is at the moment that it should be absolutely fine for the derby. It's one where didn't want to risk it on international duty, and he had to you have to fulfill that really and go out there, let their doctors have a look at you. But he did that. They had a look, figured he probably wouldn't be in great shape for these 2 games that the Netherlands have got, and sent him home. So I don't think it's, in terms of the injury blows you could get, it's not too bad that he goes there, misses international duty. It's a nice little cheeky one that you can get away with. So, and it gives him a little bit of a rest as well, which I don't think is a bad thing, because for me, all this talk that all the players are tired, I don't really buy into this, but I totally understand where people are coming from if they think that Gravenberch is looking a little bit leggy, because this is the longest and most intense season of his career so far, and maybe we're just seeing a few signs of that recently. So yeah, a couple of weeks off and putting his feet up, and then that extra little bit of a break as well before the derby, I think that'll do him the world of good, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone's keeping an eye on the internationals. I mean, touch wood so far, it doesn't look like it's been too bad. There's the South American boys will play in the early hours of Wednesday morning, so they'll have the week still. Fingers crossed that nothing goes wrong with that. I mean, it's looked okay. The worst bit so far seems to have been Van Dijk paying extra time, which no one really wanted. And there's a lot of minutes in Virgil's legs. But just the other games, like Gakpo probably playing some minutes suits him. It's not been too bad so far, has it?
No, exactly. As you say, with Van Dijk, I guess that's the kind of annoying bit, isn't it, about Nations League and it being competitive is that you have that additional extra time just thrown in there as something else to be concerned about. But again, you got to say that Van Dijk, he looks after himself, doesn't he? He's used to playing a lot of minutes in a season, and there is, it's not coming back to play at the weekend, so he does have that little bit of extra rest. So that is definitely helpful. And then there are bonuses as well. Gakpo has looked like he's needed games, looks like he's needed minutes. He scored a goal, which will be good for him. So hopefully he's coming back with a little bit of rhythm that he was definitely lacking when he came back into the team. So I think that's a real benefit. So he can kind of swing either way, can't it? There are positives and negatives to it. But I guess from that one squad, you've seen both sides of it. As I say, Gravenberch missing out, Gakpo getting some form that he needed, and then Van Dijk playing more than you would have liked to. So it's it's one of those. It's a bit of both really in terms of positives and negatives, and you just hope that the positives outweigh the negatives, and that all of them come back and are in good shape for the Everton game.
Yeah, fingers crossed that the early hours of Wednesday or before then bring no further drama. And I suppose positional wise, because everyone's looking ahead a little bit to that game against Everton. Probably the biggest news people are wondering and hoping is that with the gap, we literally had no right backs. Jarell Quansah played at Wembley, didn't he, against Newcastle? And everyone was waiting kind of for an update on Trent, probably not too hopeful. And it seems to be suggested it's a April return, which leaves a big gap there for when that would be. And also Connor Bradley, people are hoping he's going to, we'll get some imminent news. He's back in training. I suppose that ultimately the question is, David, is there a hope we'll have a natural right back for the derby?
I don't think it'll be Trent. I can say that much. Obviously, that April return being slated there, I'd be pretty surprised if he was back for the derby. With Connor Bradley, I haven't heard anything for a couple of weeks now, so maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll get a nice surprise there. But again, don't know if that's still maybe another game or another couple of games away from him coming back. So, at the moment, as things stand with what I know at the moment, it wouldn't be shocked at all to see Quansah lining up at right back again, which, he's a good player, but it's a blow, isn't it? Liverpool aren't quite as threatening with him there, and it does affect the balance of the team. But equally, it's a Merseyside derby at Anfield, and I think, if you can't, you sometimes got to cope in games and in seasons with moments like this where, Liverpool don't have a lot of injuries at all. They've done quite well for injuries this season, but they've got a concentration of all three kind of right backs who can play it in a natural way are all out at the moment. So that is painful, but you've got to get through these moments. And if you're going to win a title, you've got to kind of come through them and try and win and find a way around that issue. So if it is Quansah at right back, which I currently would expect it to be, then, Liverpool have just got to cope with that and show that, that's not a big enough blow to stop them being a better side than Everton at Anfield.
Yeah, fingers crossed with that one. And I suppose on the right back situation, because there's a few people, and you can see why they're starting to talk about it a bit more. We've not really discussed sort of right back, or there's no imminent links with right backs to come in. But obviously, I think a lot of people suspect what's going to happen with Trent by this summer. And Connor Bradley's now unfortunately moved into that camp of he's actually missed more games than he's been available for in the last few years. Do you think there is a bit of a concern around the right back position going into the summer?
Yeah, I think Connor Bradley's, the fact it's consistently muscle issues is a little bit of a concern, because that the players who tend to get them a lot. Canate's been on that list in the past of players, although, maybe we should take a little bit of hope from the fact he's been managed through those this season and hasn't really had many issues. So, I mean, the one injury he's had this season came when he got a knock on his knee, which was, if someone fell on him, there's not a lot you can kind of do about those issues. So, this medical staff and this football staff have shown that they're capable of managing these issues. So hopefully in the coming years, they can get on top of Bradley's issues and it doesn't prove to be a problem. So, but it is a little bit of a concern at the moment. He has been kind of consistently picking those up. And I guess the other concern is obviously, is Trent even going to be there or not? So, we kind of don't know yet on that front, do we? And we'll have to see how that plays out. But obviously, it would be a question in your mind about, I've been very much in the camp that when Trent goes, you can't replace what he does. So you might as well have an orthodox right back who is very good at doing right back things, which is what Connor Bradley is. And I would be happy for him to be the replacement. And then you bring in someone who can kind of back that up. But it's yeah, it's just one of the things you've got to consider. Is he going to be able to get through a season in the way that Trent generally has done? Because you need those players. Availability, we always say, is the best ability, isn't it? So he needs to up that kind of resistance and ability to get through these seasons. So yeah, hopefully it's just a little bit of a bump in the road in his development, and it's not something that becomes a consistent issue.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. And as you say, it's just one of the 8 million questions to answer this summer, or wonder what is coming up